The United States is once again staring at the edge of a government shutdown. On February 12th, U.S. Senate failed to advance a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security. The vote stood at 52 to 47, 8 votes short of the 60 needed to move forward. And now, with temporary funding expiring at midnight February 13th, the clock is ticking. At the center of the political storm, immigration enforcement, fatal shootings, and a federal operation that has deeply divided America. For months, up to 3,000 federal agents from ICE and Border Patrol had been deployed in Minnesota under what was called Operation Metro Surge. The deployment followed 2 fatal shootings of U.S. citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, by federal enforcement officers in Minneapolis. Those deaths triggered outrage. Hundreds of complaints poured in allegations of excessive force, abuse of power, intimidation of journalists, and aggressive raids targeting communities. Then came a dramatic shift. President Donald Trump approved the end of federal immigration deployment in Minnesota. The announcement was delivered by immigration czar Tom Homan, who declared, "Operation Metro Surge is going to end."
With that, and success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement, I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. We have a lot of work to do across this country to remove public safety risk who shouldn't even be in this country, and to deliver on President Trump's promise for strong border security and mass deportation. Law enforcement officers drawing down from this surge operation will either return to their duty stations or be assigned elsewhere to achieve just that.
The Department of Homeland Security only received a 2-week funding extension, while other federal agencies were funded for the rest of the fiscal year. Now that extension is expiring. Without an agreement, Homeland Security, the department that oversees ICE and Border Patrol, could face a partial shutdown.
Are you talking about our funding bill? We're concerned about the Department of Homeland Security not being funded. In fact, I think it's the wrong message to send to the world at this point in time. When you think about it, every other portion of the federal government has been funded except Homeland Security. That's telling the rest of the world the Democrat Party doesn't think that protecting America is safe. It's the wrong message to send. They keep talking about the fact that they want ICE's operations to be impacted, but only 11% of that bill is ICE. The rest of it is FEMA, which is responsible for disaster response, for protecting our critical infrastructure. If we had some kind of an attack or a terrible disaster that hit our country, FEMA is the agency that's responsible for running our government, for stabilizing our country. And the Democrat Party is choosing not to fund FEMA and put us in jeopardy in that situation. The other things that wouldn't be funded is TSA. The security at all of our airports is in jeopardy because they've refused to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The TSA, those officers that show up and check your bags, they screen individuals on if they're safe to get on airplanes or not, they won't be paid. After Friday, they won't be paid and won't receive their paychecks. And I hear people talk about the fact, well, they're exempt employees, they're expected to still show up. How long would you continue to show up for a job that you're not being paid for? In fact, these TSA employees just went through a 43-day shutdown where they weren't paid. How often do you expect these good patriots to keep showing up and to do their job knowing that their salaries won't be taken care of and their families' bills won't be taken care of? We fund the Secret Service. The Secret Service has responsibility to protect the most powerful people in the world. We also fund the Coast Guard. When you talk about the Coast Guard right now is keeping rivers open on the East Coast so that critical food and energy sources can get to our largest cities. The Coast Guard is out there breaking ice on the Hudson River, the New York Harbor, the East River, and keeping that ice, the rivers open so that we can get fuel and propane and fuel and food to New York and to Boston and to cities that rely on that. What you're saying by not funding the Coast Guard is that the Democrat Party doesn't think it's important that people eat or that they stay warm or that our national security is protected. So this is a dangerous situation that we're in, that the Democrat Party has chosen to shut down the department that was created after 9/11. This department was created recognizing that we are vulnerable to terrorist attacks and that American homeland needs to be funded and focused on keeping us safe within our own borders. We have all responsibility for cyber operations and funding and going after terrorists who would attack our critical infrastructure, our electrical grid, our water systems, that would come in and hack into our intelligence agencies and our national security operations. The Department of Homeland Security has the agency that's responsible for stopping those threats and going after those bad actors. The Democrat Party is choosing not to fund them and making us very vulnerable to those terrorists being successful here on our homeland. I hope that they will come to their senses, recognize that the American people need to come first, and have a policy discussion that we should be having on a policy bill in regards to any reforms that they want to see.
Polls show widespread disapproval of ICE's methods even among voters who support tough immigration policies. And with November legislative elections approaching, Republicans are facing mounting political pressure. Democrats demanded change, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer made it clear, Democrats will not support an extension of the status quo.
Americans are crystal clear about how they feel about ICE. The status quo cannot continue. We hear it from people back home and all over the country. People are angry, they're afraid, they want accountability and an end to the chaos. The White House and congressional Republicans must listen and deliver. Democrats have been very clear. We will not support an extension of the status quo. A status quo that permits masked secret police to barge into people's homes without warrants, no guardrails, zero oversight from independent authorities, a rogue police force that doesn't obey the rules that every local police force and sheriff's office must obey. It's out of control. No American, regardless of party, supports having their taxpayer dollars fund a secret police force that operates without transparency or accountability. Democrats agree. We demand common sense solutions, practical solutions, solutions that every police department in America abides by to rein in ICE, stop the violence. Now today, Tom Homan held another press conference in Minneapolis, claiming that the surge in that city is going to soon conclude. He says a significant drawdown has been underway. But let me be very clear. Regardless of what Tom Homan says, ICE's abuses cannot be solved merely through executive fiat alone. We first and foremost need legislation. And that's what Democrats have said from the start. We need legislation to rein in ICE and end the violence. Without legislation, what Tom Homan says today could be reversed tomorrow on a whim from Donald Trump. He could say, go into that city. Put your masks back on. You don't need a warrant, Trump could tell them.